Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to talk about camping and tunneling and how it's actually not a good idea a lot of the time. Not to say that it's not a good idea sometimes, because it is. But I think the main problem is people don't really critically think about when it's a good idea to do it. They've just been told that at a high level you have to camp and tunnel to win. That's all you can do. And they just take that to heart. They don't think about the why of it. They've been told by good players that that's what they have to do, and so they just mimic it without critically thinking about why they need to do it. And I think that's the thing I want to talk about, because I was watching a lot of footage from that whole series I have where people were submitting games where they think they did everything they could and they still lost. It was mostly troll submissions, Rick rolls, but there were like 10 or 15 actual submissions. And in almost every single one of them, this is why it prompted me to make this video. In almost every single one of them, they thought that they were playing as well as they could have because they were basically proxy camping and tunneling someone immediately, trying to remove them from the match as quickly as possible. And make no mistake, removing someone from the match as quickly as possible is the smartest thing you can do as a killer. I'm not going to pretend that's not the case, although I try to not do it. That's not really out of the goodness of my heart or anything like that. It really is the smartest thing in the world to try to get a survivor out of the match as quickly as possible. And that's why people try to proxy camp and tunnel and get someone out of the match as quickly as they can. But like I said, they don't think about the actual time efficiency. They're just following a manual, basically. They're not realizing the time investment to actually get that survivor out of the match is actually worse than just hooking them and immediately trying to pressure somebody else. And it's kind of hard to think about it like this, but let's just assume that every survivor has like 100 generator seconds, right? You have to look at the game in generator seconds because that's their main objective. When you're not pressuring anybody, they're just doing gens because they have nothing else to do, right? So let's say you hook a guy. I'll actually go for an example from one of the videos. There was a Blight on Haddonfield, I think. He got a hook at 4 gens left. Pretty good, right? So he felt that it was pretty safe to proxy camp this guy and basically tunnel him out of the match. So he would have maybe 1 or 2 gens left with, a 3v1, and that's a lot easier to win. But if you think about the amount of time you're removing from the match by tunneling one guy out, let's say he would have done 100 seconds of generators that you completely removed. So that 100 seconds is gone. That basically divvies up like 20 something, to 30 more seconds to the other survivors to fill up that gap. So you basically have 100 seconds removed here, but you still have like 300 seconds from the other survivors that are still being done because you're not pressuring them in any way. And so time efficiency wise, although you will have a guy out of the match, often it's the case that by the time you do, the match is close to over, or there's 1 gen left and you haven't had time to set up a 3 gen because you've been in the same area. So it ends up not really benefiting you. You're going to kill that guy that you've been camping, of course. But maybe you'll get 1 more kill with 6 hook states. I don't really consider that a win. Yes, it's 2 kills, but I play for hook states, whether or not that's the correct thing to do. I don't give a shit. That's just what I enjoy doing. So to me personally, I don't view that as a win because I haven't divvied it up. I've just applied it to basically the same person and I just got 2 hooks the entire match. I don't consider that good or fun or winning or anything like that. But let's look at it a bit further than that, because it's not so simple just getting someone out of the match. And here is where all of the problems arise. It's because perks exist. DS and Borrow Time, for example, can actually make it so the time you spend trying to tunnel someone out of the match is just worse than if you just tried to spread the pressure. So, for example, let's say you're even smart about it. I think an inexperienced killer will try to camp someone from their first hook. That's 2 minutes of camping. The entire team can finish basically every gen, during that time. So it's just not a good idea to do that unless you down them, immediately at the start of the match. If you down a guy immediately, sure, you can camp him to death and still win. But chances are there's going to be 3 gens left probably by the time you down them for your first down, because the first gens always go really fast, right? So let's say you down that guy and then you hook them with 3 gens left. If you hook that guy, that's 3 people working on gens again, so they're probably going to finish all the gens. But let's say you don't camp that guy. Let's say as soon as you hook him, you immediately rotate to another generator. Well, when you do that, survivors are going to feel that it's much safer to go for the save now. So someone, or maybe if they have bad communication, 2 people go save, but let's just say they're efficient and 1 guy goes for save while you chase another guy. So instead of you just pressuring 1 guy while 3 people work on gens, as soon as you hook somebody and leave, now you're going to chase someone else off of a generator. The guy in the hook's not doing a gen, and someone's going to have to come save the guy. So now in this scenario, only 1 guy's working on a generator. And this is where a lot of those scenarios of, wow, when I watch this guy play the game, his gens go so slowly. These guys must suck. Or when I watch this guy, his gens go so fast. It's usually just how much they stay in the same area and pressure people off gens. surprisingly, if you go near people on generators, they can't work on generators anymore. So the games might go slower. Now, that person that is spreading the pressure might get kills at a slower rate, but the game also progresses at a slower rate as well. So it's not as big as a deal as you'd actually think. That's just a little side thing why some games seem much faster and some games seem slower. It's about how much pressure you can put out. And again, on those like 3 big maps, yeah, you can't do that. You might as well just camp because walking across the map takes the entire game. So, but that's, again, those maps just suck. That's a whole separate shitty map design issue. So in that scenario, even just right there, although you get a guy out of the match by just camping and tunneling this one guy to death, you're actually time efficiency wise losing. If you would have spread the pressure a bit more, you're only going to have one guy working on gens instead. All that's well and good, whatever. But now we have to actually talk about realistic matches where people have perks, and people have perks that stop you from doing this. And I'll bring up this Blight example again that I was watching. So the Blight, he was smart about it. I think I don't actually remember. Let's pretend he was smart about it. Let's say he camped the guy, but only on a second stage. So it only took a minute. That's not enough time to finish the rest of the gens. 2 minutes, yes, everyone can do all the gens. But for just 1 minute, that's not enough time. So let's pretend he was smart about it and he just camped a guy on one generator, on his death hook, right? Sorry, my phone rang. So they're camping somebody that's on their death hook. So that means they're going to be sitting there for, at the most, a full minute, which means there's probably going to be 2 other people working on gens that entire time, and one guy is probably going to come try to save, right? So in that scenario, let's say the guy actually does go for the save, and he does have borrowed time. So the guy that saves him, and let's say the killer's even smart about it as well. They hit the guy as he's going towards the hook, then he hit him again as he's doing the unhook. So the unhook happens, but now the unhooker is on the ground. And so now you have that guy on the ground. Now you're chasing another guy. There's still 2 people on gens during this whole time. And this is what happened in this guy's game as well when I was watching. So he waited like 15 seconds for borrowed time. You're not a robot, so you're not going to remember it's exactly 12 seconds. You're going to err on the side of caution. Probably wait more like 12, 13, 14, 15 seconds. So that's just 15 seconds if you're just following a guy. And now this assumes during this entire time you're following the guy off the hook that he's not able to get to a pallet or a jungle gym or a window or anything. Let's assume worst case scenario, he just has nothing. He just runs in a straight line for 15 seconds. And let's say you actually down him. Well, now you have to go, okay, well, does this guy have Decisive Strike? If he has DS, well, then this entire chase resets. He can get to another thing. And during this whole time, they're finishing gens. They can get this guy up. Now I'm wasting even more time not doing anything. And that's the kind of gamble you have to take. Or you can do what a lot of killers do and just down the guy and then just sort of hover around the area for a minute. I see this so many times. They'll down a guy, they'll be scared of Decisive Strike, and they'll just hover in the area for like the full minute as the rest of the gens get finished and they pick the other guy up. People are so scared of DS that it's almost better just eat the DS. But then let's say, okay, the guy does eat the DS. So now he's up again and he's going to be reset. He's going to get plenty of distance and loop more. So he's waited 15 seconds for borrowed time. And let's say, he does another 30 or 45 second chase. So you're basically wasting another full minute just confirming the kill on this guy. During that full minute, there were 2 people still finishing generators. And then once the gens are done, one guy will go for the gate, one guy will go to pick the other guy up the ground. You'll end up getting basically 1 kill. And in that scenario, again, it's because all of these perks are making it so you don't really have the option to tunnel that guy out of the match as quickly as you would like. If there was a world where you knew they didn't have DS or you knew they didn't have borrowed time, I would not be making this video. I would be saying, no, objectively, the smartest thing you can do is to tunnel the guy out of the match immediately. But these perks do exist, and you have to respect the fact that they do exist. And because they do, it ends up being not even efficient to try to like tunnel people out of the match as quickly as possible a lot of the time. This is why, like, although I try to like play nice, I'm playing nice because it's nice, but also I'm not doing it at detriment to myself. I'm not handicapping myself by not camping or tunneling. I get hit by DS maybe like once every 2 or 3 streams, and it's because I just don't put myself in situations where it's possible to even get hit by it. And again, it's not like I'm handicapping myself. I'm still winning the majority of my matches. So I'm not like saying, wow, look how I'm still winning despite being nice. Look how good I am. It's just because actually being nice ends up being the correct play a lot of the time, because when you do that, you're ignoring DS and you're ignoring borrowed time. And those perks are very, very common. So when you play like that, you just don't have to worry about those perks. And although it is, obviously not good to not confirm a kill, being able to ignore those perks ends up, in my opinion, having more of a benefit on the time spent actually getting people off gens and stuff like that. So that's the main point that I'm trying to make here, is that these perks basically make the efficiency of actually trying to, tunnel someone off a hook or something like that just not worth it a lot of the time. Again, not to say it's not worth it all the time. Sometimes you'll have survivors that feed into altruism, and if you're camping somebody and 2 people come to save, well, that's sufficient for you. Keep camping. It's just when people are smart about it and they don't send the entire team to come face dive a hook is when it actually starts punishing you. And that's typically when you're going against smarter or good survivors. Yeah, like dumb altruistic survivors that are just throwing themselves at you. Of course, keep camping. If it works, it works. That's great. I'm not going to tell you how to play the game. I'm just saying in most scenarios against good survivors, that ends up not being the correct play. And there's also a counterpoint I want to talk about, because every time I have this discussion, people go, okay, well, look at every tournament. Look at every high-level DBD match in the world. People are camping and tunneling. That's the only possible way they can confirm kills. And I will agree. In tournaments, that's true. But you're not playing in tournaments. You're just playing in random queues with random MMR. Even if you're high MMR, you're not playing in a tournament. They are completely separate games. It's definitely people that have never actually played like against a real tournament team in a tournament that say this stuff, because it's not at all similar. And the main point here is that when you're playing a regular match, perks are not regulated at all. Yes, when you're playing in a tournament where perks are heavily regulated, it's very smart. And this is why killers do proxy camp and tunnel in these matches, because they know they can't all have DS and Unbreakable and borrowed time. They know they can't have all that stuff because it's not allowed. So basically, when you tunnel someone off the hook, there's a 75% chance, yes, you're doing the correct play. You don't have to worry about these perks. You just down them, pick them up, and then they're dead. But that's not how regular matches go. You're not playing in a tournament. There's no regulations. Everyone can have these perks. So the time investment into actually having to deal with them more often than not ends up costing you the game more than if you just tried to spread pressure throughout the map. And that's the whole kind of point I wanted to make there. If there were no perk regulations in any tournaments, I'm willing to bet people would camp and tunnel less in tournaments. Obviously, there would be probably even less hooks and kills, but it would still be more efficient to not deal with everybody having these perks. That's just a guess, though. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it would make sense, right? Because the time it takes to deal with these perks is often more than it takes to just try to spread pressure throughout the map via other means. So that's the whole discussion. In a nutshell, what I'm talking about is that people have it hammered into their head that just proxy camping and tunneling is the only way that they can win these matches at high level. And the whole point I'm trying to make is that you need to think about why that is the case. And, critically think about it. Don't just follow what you've heard and just do it without thinking why you're doing it. And a lot of the times you'll realize that it ends up being worse for you if you do that. There's no agenda here to make me, make people play nicer overall or anything like that. I've been employing this play style my entire time playing this game, and it's worked very well for me. Yeah, of course I'll still lose sometimes. That just happens. You're not supposed to win every game, especially if MMR is working. You're supposed to win half the time. That's another whole separate discussion. People think for some reason they're supposed to be winning more than half the time. But yeah, that's a separate discussion, I guess. So yeah, that's my whole point. Camping and tunneling is actually not the smartest thing to do a lot of the time. Getting someone out of the match as quickly as possible is the smartest thing you can do, but perks prevent that from happening if you just focus one guy down. So circumventing all of that and just sort of going around and spreading pressure ends up being beneficial, at least in my playstyle. It's been working out great for me for 5 years. So I thought I would just share that. That's it. I'm not saying don't do it. You can play however you want. You bought the game. I'm just saying it's actually probably worse a lot of the time. Again, unless they're throwing themselves at you, in which case, by all means, keep doing it. But if they're smart about it and they're efficient, it'll end up making you lose more often than it makes you win in regular matches. That is it, though. Thank you for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.